Night operator at the intake station. I used to think a water plant was the safest place to work nights. Everything is gauges and routines, stainless steel catwalks, pumps that hum like a giant asleep. I'm 26, the night operator at the city S River intake, a concrete box at the edge of town where raw water starts becoming drinkable. My job is simple: log turbidity and flow, backwash filters, take hourly samples, and never open a tank hatch unless a second operator is present. We make calm for people, my supervisor likes to say. No surprises after dark. By 11:10 p.m., the river was a flat black ribbon, and the intake house carried that cold stone smell that never leaves. I clicked through the SCADA screens: intake, screens, flock, sedimentation, and let the pump room's breathing settle my shoulders. The first odd thing was so small I almost let it go. The label printer on the lab bench chattered by itself and spit a wet edge strip that read, "Do not open hatch." We print bottle labels, not commandments. I stuck it under a magnet, like a joke, and told the room not to get ideas. At 11:32, something tapped twice from the clarifier gallery. Soft, measured knuckles on steel. Not a pipe ping, not a valve seat. The sound tucked itself into the concrete and waited. I took the flashlight anyway and walked the graded walkway over the circular tanks where flock settles, and the water remembers how to be clear. The surface looked wrong, only in the way night looks wrong. Too dark to tell if it's moving. The taps didn't repeat. "Thermal expansion," I said to the handrail, and the handrail said nothing back. The radio on my belt hissed. Our radios crack once in a while when dispatch tests the repeater. This was different. A close, damp breath, then a voice placing each word like it was heavy. "Leave. It. Sealed." The transmission died with a little gulp of static. I thumbed back. "Copy." The channel stayed quiet, like I'd just spoken during a prayer. Midnight. I pulled a sample from the post-flock tap. The lab fluorescence gives skin that fish tank color I hardly think about anymore. As I set the sample on the bench, clear, cold, I saw a handprint bloom on the inside of the glass, 5 foggy ovals and a heel, sliding an inch before it cleared. I breathed in too sharply and watched my own fog prove I wasn't imagining the other fog. I labeled the bottle anyway. Post-flock 00 pros, the SCADA alarm bar blinked a single amber. Intake screen differential rise. Normal if driftwood decides we're interesting. I acknowledged, pinged the bar screen camera. The feed jittered, stabilized, and showed the screen drums turning slow, cross-hatched steel, doing their quiet miracle. For one frame, the water behind the mesh looked like it had a face in it. Not a face like a face, more like varnish that hadn't finished drying. Then, a leaf slid across, and it was water again. At 12:19, the house phone rang. No one knows that number, but the main plant and the night security guard. I lifted the beige receiver. The line hissed like a seashell had learned to live on a river. A voice exhaled 3 words. Careful, almost kind. "Don't open up." 11 seconds. Click. I wrote, "Odd call," in the log, because writing makes things smaller. The printer spit a second strip while I did it. "Keep hatches closed," with a timestamp in the corner that said 3:13 m. Even though the wall clock said 12:21, I didn't like touching that one long enough to magnet it. I did rounds. The sedimentation basins are long rectangles with a stillness that feels like thought. The light above Basin 2 flickered once and held, as if it had decided not to be brave. When I leaned on the rail to watch the gentle drift of flock, the mew water breathed. Not a ripple, not wind. The way air breathes when someone stands very close to your ear in a crowded room. The breath smelled like coins. The rule about hatches lives in my bones. Udanity open one at night, without another body present, because the world loves a headline about a worker and a tank. Still, when I passed the circular hatch on clarifier 3, the padlock looked wrong. It faced the hinge instead of the world, as if someone had set it down thinking absolute thoughts. I touched it. The metal was colder than the air by a lot. From the other side of the steel came 2 taps, precise as punctuation. I stepped back so fast, my knuckles bit the handrail. I told the river I'd be back and went to the control room, because chairs and screens and coffee make courage. The camera over the intake. Throat showed black, then gray, then me reflected in the glass with someone standing just behind my left shoulder. Head tilted, mouth parted as if forming the first half of "Don't mucker." I turned, just my jacket on a hook, and my shadow deciding which wall to own. I typed back, "Yeah," and stared at the lie. I didn't stick that one anywhere. At 1:06, the clarifier bridge motor tripped, then reset. I went because the body likes tasks, and the world is quiet. You hear all the small sounds at once. Your breath, your boots, the shy clink of chain. The bridge creaked. Tap, tap, landed under my feet on steel. I crouched and pressed my palm to the deck. It pressed back a fraction, like something below had put a palm to the underside. Cold through cold. Leave it sealed. The radio repeated. Nowhere. Everywhere. Paced like someone practicing breath. I made the mistake of looking down through the grate. Far below, a lighter disc turned lazily. I stood, because sitting above a thing, pretending not to be where it is felt like a choice I shouldn't make. At 1:22, I stood in front of the hatch of clarifier 3 again, because some stories like to walk in circles. The hatch shivered against the bolts, like a sleeping thing scratching an itch in its sleep. "No," I said, out loud, to a hatch. "Not both of us." The pressure withdrew, like politeness. Back at the bench, the sample bottle from midnight had fogged on the inside again. I wrapped masking tape around the neck and wrote, "Do not disturb," because writing is a talisman, even when it is a joke. The river outside forgot it makes river sounds. I could hear the buzz of the exit sign and the tiny, wet sound ink makes in a cheap pen. It left a voicemail with nothing in it but a soft knock at second 11. The clocks said 1:52. The little timestamp on the printer strips whispered 3:13. Again from the metal tray where I had not placed them. The bridge motor tripped once more at 2:06, and I went because tasks, because muscle memory. In the glass of the control room window, as I passed, I saw my reflection and a second one behind it that lagged half a step and turned its head a fraction after I did. The hatch on clarifier 3 eased a millimeter and settled back. Tap, tap, replied, almost indulgent. The river smelled like pennies again. At 2:31, the SCADA alarm did a thing ID never seen. Unknown source. Flow. On a system that has 0 unknowns. The label printer coughed a final strip into my hand. Keep the lids. I decided dawn could come early if I made it. I walked one last loop because bodies like circles. The bridge moved like it had never tripped. The hatch sat like it had never breathed. The water in the clarifier held very, very still in a way that made me think of mirrors. Every gauge needle twitched the same hair, and settled. The radio exhaled one more word, patient as tide. Sealed. Dawn got the color wrong, then fixed it. The river turned into river again. The parking lot smelled like damp concrete, which is how lots smell when they haven't been asked to hold anything hard overnight. And then sent a photo of the label strips on the magnet with a caption. We done T-print warnings. I wrote, printers old because lies deserve their little comforts. I moved to days a month later. I say it's for vitamin D and the traffic on the bridge. Sometimes at 3.13, the bathroom mirror fogs a hand's width higher than my breath can reach. When a neighbor's radiator knocks twice. Patient as punctuation, I think of steel. I keep the lids on everything now. Pots, paint cans, the little sugar jar by the stove. The pipes remember their jobs. The air lets go. And in that long, thin moment, before it does, I feel pressure answer my palm through the shape of nothing, polite as a hand on the other side of a hatch, waiting to see if I'll forget my name.
If you survived this far, leave your like to prove you are not afraid.